This all started about an hour ago. It was supposed to be my day off, and I had already planned to lay around in my house and eat junk food all day long. I hauled a bunch of snacks and drinks to the living room, not feeling even a bit of regret over the few pounds I was about to put on. I turned on the TV and jumped on the couch, scrolling through Facebook while a movie played in the background on the screen. It must have been about 5 o'clock when I got bored and decided to stretch my legs a little. When I returned from my excuse for a healthy smoke break, I saw that the movie on the TV was gone, and was instead replaced with one of those emergency broadcast screens with colorful rectangles. A male voice responded from the TV.
"Repeat, do not leave your homes under any circumstances. This is not a drill. Repeat, this is not a drill."
5-second pause.
"Attention citizens, this is an emergency broadcast. For your own safety, please lock your doors and windows immediately, and do not leave your home under any circumstances. Repeat, do not leave your home under any circumstances. This is not a drill. Repeat, this is not a drill."
The message kept replaying. I flicked through the channels only to be met with static. At first, I laughed at the absurdity of the situation. This can't be real, can it? And then it hit me. Maybe we were under attack. North Korea, or maybe another terrorist attack. In any case, I turned off the TV and decided to lock my doors and shut all the windows, covering them with blinds along the way. Before I did though, I peered out the window only to be greeted with an empty street and nothing suspicious. I sat back on my couch and messaged my friend on Facebook, asking him if he had saw the same broadcast. He didn't respond though, and Messenger said that he was online 10 minutes ago. As I scrolled through the rest of the feed, I saw nothing out of the ordinary on my friend's pages. I googled the news looking up my town, but there was nothing. I started to relax a little, beginning to think this was indeed all either a prank or a technical error. But then I heard something outside. It sounded like someone cackling, but it only lasted for about a second before it stopped. I held my breath and listened, hearing another cackle in the process, equally short and disturbing, and then a feminine scream that was suddenly cut off. It was as if whoever was screaming was suddenly muted with the pause of a button. I approached the door carefully, looking through the peephole, but I saw nothing out of the ordinary. And then, another very short and barely audible scream. I decided to go to the window, thinking I might see more. I slowly pulled the blinds aside, just enough to see a portion of the street, and my heart almost exploded. Standing right in front of me, with her face to the glass, was a woman, staring right at me. Her eyes were bloodshot and opened so widely that they looked like they were going to pop out. She was snarling, showing teeth that were stained with dark red liquid, and causing the window to fog up every second or so. Her hair was messy and her nails caked with dirt. I screamed and backed away, knocking down my table lamp in the process. I stood there for a while, staring at the blinds, knowing that the woman was just behind them, since I could occasionally hear a faint tap and scratch on the glass with her nails. And then she spoke. "Open the door, please, please, they'll find me." I stood there dumbfounded. "Please, I know you're in there. Just open the door, please." I reached for my phone and dialed 911 with trembling hands, but was met with a dead line. I tried a few times, but there was no service. "Please, let me in." "Let us in." A male voice joined the woman at the window, and then another one at the door, and another, until my entire house was surrounded by a reverberating cacophony of pleading voices, some desperate sounding, and others impatient and aggressive. I retreated to the stairs, waiting for them to go away. After what seemed like an eternity, they started shutting up one by one until I was left with a deafening silence I was grateful for. Did they get bored and decide to leave me alone? I decided to peer out my peephole to see if it was safe. When I did, I barely stopped myself from gasping loudly. Through the peephole, I could see a middle-aged man's face with bloodshot eyes, just standing there, not moving, staring at my door. Around him were more people, just staring blankly at the walls and windows. I backed away and would approach the door every few minutes since then. They've been standing in front of my house for 5 hours now. I waited and waited. I foolishly kept glancing outside to see if they had left. It was almost dark and I felt like I was losing my mind. I even contemplated opening the door, thinking they might not want to harm me. And as a last resort, I held my kitchen knife close so that I could try to fight them off, or in the worst case scenario, slit my wrists. Thoughts raced through my head about them breaking in and ripping me apart limb by limb with their bare hands, so I didn't want to find out what they planned to do to me and how creative they were. As I sat there trying not to make any noise, I decided to peer outside one last time. Looking outside, I was faced with the same people, standing in the same position, still staring at my house. But then, there was a sound, something that sounded like 3 deliberate gunshots a few blocks away. Almost instantly, the people jerked their heads towards the sound and without any hesitation started sprinting towards the source, some of them screaming along the way or making animalistic sounds. I thought there may have been 10 or 20 of them surrounding my house, but I was wrong. As I was looking through the peephole to see them leaving, more and more of them just kept running past my house, almost for a whole minute, which made me think for a moment that the horde would never end. But eventually all went still, and there was no person or sound remaining anywhere in the vicinity of my house. That's it, I'm safe, I thought. I put my back against the door and breathed a sigh of relief. And then, I heard another voice. I looked back through the peephole and saw someone across the street. A black woman and a middle-aged man were moving cautiously towards my house in a crouched position. The woman had an axe and the man seemed to be carrying a baseball bat. "Come on, they'll be back soon." The woman gestured for the man to follow her, and they stopped right in front of my house. "Hey, you there." She tried to speak quietly, but loud enough for me to hear. "Hey." She knocked on the door. "You need to come out now. Those lunatics will be back soon." I clutched the knife harder and held my breath. "Look, we're not one of them. Now come on, open the door." "He's not gonna open." The man shook his head. "Come on, let's go." Maybe it was the fact that I desperately wanted not to be alone anymore in that moment. But I quickly unlocked the door and opened it slightly. "Hey!" I called out to them from behind the door, concealing the knife. "Finally," the lady said. "Come on, they'll be back soon. We need to evacuate." "Wait, the broadcast said we needed to stay inside," I argued. "Screw that, there's no help coming. No, come on, we're leaving to the evac site without you. I knew there was no time to argue, and much less time to prepare supplies to bring before those freaks returned. So I just locked my house and left the keys in the nearby bushes. I'm Angela, by the way, and this is Travis, the lady said. It should be safe to leave the neighborhood this way. I introduced myself and asked what was going on. Don't know exactly, people just started acting crazy. The town's been quarantined, but there's one checkpoint where we can get out. They got soldiers there, Travis said with his raspy voice. Should be safe to wait for this to blow over outside town. How do you know? I asked. I don't for sure, but it's our best bet. First we gotta find our guy, Angela said. He insisted on firing a few shots to distract them and save your ass. He'll meet us at the gas station. The walk to the gas station was uneventful. The streets were empty, but we did see crashed cars and a few bodies from a distance. I had never seen a corpse before, let alone mangled and butchered ones like these. So I tried to look away and not think how these people died. No crazy people were on the street though, or anyone alive for that matter. When we got to the station, there was a young man waiting there. He couldn't have been more than 18. Ricky, nice work back there. Angela greeted him. Here's the guy you were risking your ass for. I owe you one, man. I shook his hand and awaited for the group to give further instructions. Hey Travis, you okay? Angela asked him, and when I glanced at him, I saw that he was pale. Yeah, just tired is all. I'm gonna use the restroom. He replied and disappeared into the gas station. Ricky suggested that we scavenge the remaining food in the station, so we went inside. The inside of the gas station looked like it was left in a panicked hurry. Some of the items were knocked over. The floor stained with liquid from broken bottles. The majority of the shelves left pillaged. Ricky assured us that he had already scouted the place, and that it was safe, but I still felt uneasy, as if one of those people would jump me from around the corner. I gathered whatever I deemed necessary, like chocolate bars, chips, water, and of course, cigarettes. You never know when you might need them. I went into the restroom to take a leak when I heard a loud crash from inside. Travis, you okay? I called out to him. I heard his voice, but he didn't respond. It sounded like he was having a heated discussion with someone. Travis? I heard him from inside one of the stalls, so I called out his name. He was whispering loudly, murmurs that I couldn't make out. I carefully approached the stall and stopped, listening to him. I was able to grab only a few phrases in his indistinct chatter, like, can't get away, out, 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 and feed them to something. Hey Travis, are you okay in there? I asked, and against my better judgment, decided to slowly open the door. Before I even realized what was going on, Travis burst out of the stall and jumped on top of me, knocking me on my back. I held him back as he thrashed against me. His face was all red and his eyes were bloodshot, veins bulging from his neck and forehead so violently that they looked like they would explode in any moment. Outside, no control. Find the host. He screamed the gibberish, his spit flying all over me. Get off me. I tried to pull him off, but he was too strong. The door of the bathroom burst open, and Angela and Ricky ran in, shouting at Travis to stop it. A few moments of frenetic screaming, shouting, and struggling, and then Travis went completely limp. I pushed him off, only then realizing that there was a fire axe embedded in his forehead. His eyes were wide open, still bloodshot, and a pool of blood was forming on the floor around his head. I backed away to the wall, breathing heavily, and as the adrenaline subsided, I started to feel a burning sensation all over my arms. I had deep scratches and spit from Travis all over me. Oh no. No, no, no. I stared at the scratches, my hands trembling uncontrollably. This is it, I thought. All those zombie movies I watched, and this was how it ends. Damn it, Travis. I barely heard Angela say while standing over his body. She and Ricky discussed something, but I was in my own world then. Hey, you okay? Angela shook me out of my trance. He infected me, I said with a trembling voice. You're fine, she responded. But the virus. He scratched me, and I think I got some of his spit in my mouth and on my wounds. This isn't a virus. Angela shook her head. It's a parasite, and we all have it inside of us. Parasite? I was still in shock from everything that had just happened. I thought you said you didn't know what was going on. Angela sighed. I work for the town's pharmaceutical company as a secretary. When this all started today, I got a message on my company phone from my coworker Daniel. He was very vague, but he told me not to go into work today. That it's not safe in town. He said there's a people-killing parasite which is immune to medication, and that we all have it, so we should take antibiotics to suppress its growth. That's all I know.
What?
Ricky interjected.
That's crazy.
I know how it sounds. Angela continued. Look, Daniel is a researcher at the lab, so I'm sure he knows more than we do, and he's not one to exaggerate. Where is he now? I asked. He hasn't responded to any of my messages. For all we know, he could already be dead, and the last thing he sent me was that we should evacuate via the bridge. He said that the army would be there. Our best bet is to reach the evac point. But if we're all infected, there's no way we can leave town, I said. I know, Angela responded. Look, the government is organizing an evacuation for a reason. They might have a cure for this, or at least a temporary solution. Ricky and I agreed. I asked about finding some guns, but they disagreed, stating it would be suicide. Those freaks were very perceptive, and firing even a single bullet could swarm hundreds of them on us in a matter of seconds. That meant that cars were out of the question too. They also told me that they also seemed to work as a beehive, cooperating really well with each other and not attacking their own. On top of all that, they seemed to retain some form of intelligent thinking, which explained their behavior in front of my house. By the time we stocked up with food and water, it was already dark, but Angela suggested we move now for better cover. The checkpoint was supposedly not far away, so it wouldn't take longer than an hour to reach it. We each took one antibiotic pill, which Angela had on her, hoping against hope that it would slow down the parasite until we reached the checkpoint. I expected the town to be filled with screams and other inhuman sounds made by those things. And I was right. The sounds were distant but always present around us. A scream here, a crash there, putting all three of us on edge. Carefully taking every step and frantically looking behind and around us. At one point, there was a loud scream right behind us, and as we turned around, we saw a naked man running 1 block away and disappearing around the corner. We waited, not sure if he was toying with us. A few seconds later, another scream was heard from the adjacent street where the man had just vanished. The next few seconds were a mixture of two screams, one violent and blood-curdling, the other pleading, along with the sound of loud pummeling, until the latter was the only sound that remained. I wanted to help whoever was in trouble there, but Angela stopped me and silently shook her head. All three of us just moved on without a single word to each other. As we neared the bridge, the horrid sounds around us slowly started fading away, until the only sound remaining was our footsteps echoing throughout the street. After an excruciating hour of sneaking, and praying that we don't run into one of those people who would attract others, we finally made it to the bridge. There was a makeshift barricade made from barbed wire and cement bags. There were dozens of corpses strewn about the road in front of and on the bridge itself. One even slumped across the barricade, making the entire scene look like a war massacre. We ducked behind a wall and observed the bridge. On the other side of it, at the end of the street, was a tall wall, which hadn't been there before. I remember asking myself how the hell they managed to block off an entire city so quickly. "Do you see anyone there?" Angela asked. "It looks deserted." I squinted my eyes, trying to detect any sign of movement across the bridge. "Army guys must be ahead. Let's check it out," Ricky said. "Wait, we have to be careful here," Angela interjected. "What if there's no checkpoint at all? Or if they mistake us for one of those lunatics?" "What choice do we have? We're running out of time here. I'll go first. Stay behind me and watch our backs." Ricky stood up and started towards the bridge. Before Angela or I could argue any further, we watched as Ricky jumped over the barricade with great finesse, and we followed, carefully stepping around the dead bodies and pools of dried blood. Looking at the corpses made me feel uneasy. There were women and children here, mothers embracing their children in their final moments. Angela mumbled, "Oh my God," to herself next to me and said, "Were all these people trying to evacuate, but didn't make it?" "I don't know." I shook my head. But these people were definitely not the freaks. I inadvertently started to think about what could have happened here, and how these people felt in those last moments. Just as I was about to entertain that morbid thought, Ricky called out to us from across the bridge. Guys?" He was kneeling over one of the dead bodies on the road. "I don't think there's gonna be an evac." "What do you mean?" I asked. He pointed to the body he was inspecting, and then stood up, putting his arms on his hips. "These bodies have bullet holes in them." He gestured to us. "I think this was the army's doing." What happened next was too fast for my brain to process. There was a glint on top of the wall, Angela screaming Ricky's name, a loud bang that echoed through the street, and Ricky's head kicking forward from the bullet's impact as he went limp and fell down without a sound. The poor kid probably never even realized what hit him. "Contact!" We heard someone yell from the wall as a hail of bullets started being fired in our direction, barely missing us by a thread. Angela and I quickly stumbled backwards, running for our lives frantically, while the sound of bullets persisted. We ran for what felt like miles until the gunshots faded, and then finally stopped completely. We stopped in the middle of a street, breathing heavily and trying to process what the hell just happened. But the silence didn't last for long, because the sound of bullets was quickly replaced with a different, equally ominous one. The screams of the freaks which froze your bones to the marrow, bringing along with them impending doom. Their death cries were all around us now, and they were drawing closer by the second. Hey guys, thanks for making it to the end of the video, it means a lot. If you enjoyed the story, be sure to check out the author's book, which I'll link down in the description. And if you want a part 2 to I Live in a Small Town and We Just Had an Emergency Broadcast, then be sure to leave a like and a comment on the video.